Another place, there was a bunch of construction workers, and the rabbit ran past them and they didn't see it. But the dachshund came barking after the rabbit, and the hawk was right over the dachshund because they're all going after the rabbit. And these lovely young construction men said, "We'll save your dog, lady. We'll save your dog, lady." And they went running after the dachshund to try to stop her. And I had to explain to them, thank you. The stories are endless. After all these years, the stories are endless. And I'm sure anybody that's had a dachshund and a hawk have their stories. And it's wonderful.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Told podcast. And before I fill you all in on what's going to be happening for a while here with the podcast, I need to start off by giving a quick shout out to our sponsors, as usual, being Baba Yaga Crafts out of Poland. If you haven't had a chance to buy or check out any of his awesome handmade equipment yet, I highly recommend you do so. You all will continue to hear me brag about the great quality of his anklets and hybrid jesses and everything else that he makes. So if you haven't had a chance to yet, it's well worth your time and money to do so. At least give it a shot. I don't think you'll be disappointed. He makes some great stuff. So anyway, his contact information can be found on our website at falconrytold.com, or you can drop a message on Instagram at Baba Yaga Goshawk is what his handle is there on Instagram. So hit him up, put in an order, and I'm pretty sure you'll be stoked with the results. I also wanted to let you all know that Seth Roy of North Mountain Goshawks is going to be taking orders here for the next upcoming breeding season. So if you want to get on the list for a new goshawk, especially a parent-reared goshawk, I highly recommend you hit him up at northmountaingoshawks.com. Fill out the information form or send him a message on Facebook and get on the list for a new goshawk if you're in the market for one. He produces some really nice, really high quality game hawks. So if you're in the market for a goshawk as your new hunting partner for this upcoming season, hit him up, see what your options are, get on the list for the upcoming season, and tell him we sent you. Okay, so I'm going to fill you all in now on what's going to be kind of going on with the podcast over the next 2 or 3 months or so at least. I have the good problem right now of having a lot of episodes that are waiting to be published, and it's a good problem to have, but I'm going to switch things up a little bit since I have this good problem right now. I'm going to kind of keep things alternating back and forth, mix things up a bit for you all, and there's going to be some individual episodes scattered in here and there with these couple of series that I'm going to be doing. One of them is going to start next week, and you all find out what kind of series that's going to be whenever I publish it, the first episode for it next week. But this episode is going to be the start of a new series that is going to feature dachshunds in falconry. And as many of you know, I run dachshunds now, and I got a chance to attend my first dachshund field trial back in, I believe it was April, and a large part of my motivation for going to that particular field trial was because I knew that our guest for this episode was also going to be there as a judge, and I really wanted to meet her and pick her brain some and get to know her a little bit. I've heard so many wonderful things about her, and I'm very happy to say that all the things that I heard leading into my first encounter with her were 100% true, and I'm so very happy that I got a chance to sit down with Teddy and get to know her some. And she was an individual that I felt I related to really well, and I was just really impressed by how nice, open, and just kind of upfront and honest she was with everything. So anyway, after I sat down and recorded this episode with her, I got to talking to her, and she started kind of telling me other falconers who I should get in touch with who also run dachshunds. And I thought, this is just a great opportunity to actually do a first kind of series showcasing a particular breed that's used prominently in falconry. So this series is kind of developed from all that, and I owe this series kind of coming together to a lot of different falconers, in particular Casey Everett and a lot of the other falconers from the Jersey area, as well as Kevin Stoller, who bred one of my dachshunds, Horace, my dapple, and without them, there probably wouldn't have been near as much content in this series that I'm going to be able to bring you all. So you'll hear more about that as the series develops. But anyway, I've got a lot of great stuff coming to you all soon between this series and the other one that I want to start next episode. So without any further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and launch into this conversation and let you all hear from Teddy Moritz. Here we go. All right. Well, like I said, Teddy, I really appreciate your time. And as we were kind of talking before, I mean, I'm really glad that I was able to get this whole trip worked out and be able to experience my first field trial. And thanks to Kevin's orchestrations, I guess, so to speak, and getting a chance to email you beforehand and see if you'd be willing to do an episode with me while we're both at the same place in the same time. I'm just really happy that the circumstances and timing worked out, and it was great to get a chance to meet you in person.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's kind of humbling to be asked to speak to an audience that I have been in contact with for many years and offered my ideas for many years. And I'm glad you got to see the Dachshund field trials and how they're run, and that your dogs did credibly in them.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Like I said, I came into this with zero expectations, and it really does mean a lot to hear, the positive feedback from you today. And, like I said, I really had no idea what to expect coming into this for the most part. People tell you things and they do their best sometimes to kind of prep you and give you an idea of what you might run into or might expect and stuff. But like I said, the positive feedback and prompting and showing what I kind of needed to be doing and stuff, it really helped a lot. So I appreciate it.
We do welcome new people to the sport, and we especially appreciate any falconers that bring their dachshunds, because once a dachshund is hunted, he can usually do pretty well at a field trial. But at the field trial, they earn ribbons, which the hawk doesn't eat. And I enjoy the field trials because there are people who are friends, and I like to see other dogs run. And if I see a dog that can beat mine, I want to know more about it.
Well, it was kind of funny because when we were kind of getting a chance to finally talk a little bit and, get to know each other a little bit as we were kind of, helping with the beating of the brush and stuff and seeing other people's dogs run, it was funny because you said something similar when we were talking, and it kind of reminded me of a lot of that, friendly competition that gets brought out amongst us falconers.
Yes. This is a competition where you can earn a ribbon. You can also pay money to enter it and do a lot of traveling and pay for motels. And you can end up with points and titles and get totally involved. And that's one advantage of an AKC registered dachshund, is that the whole AKC performance roster is available to dachshunds. So they are multi-purpose dogs. If your family is interested in training the dog for obedience or agility or all the other titles they can earn, an AKC dachshund can do that for you. So it can become a family affair. And then in the wintertime, it becomes your dog as a hunting dog.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like a world that can be very complex, and I know for me, kind of slightly overwhelming,
Yes.
kind of to get into.
Yes.
So
for first timers, yes. Well, so's falconry. If you go to a meet and you see all these people and they're going all different directions, but the birds are all in the truck and people take off and there you stand, it can be overwhelming if you don't have a guide, if you don't have someone that can help you. And at field trials, we try to welcome new people and explain the rules. And when we're in the field, show them how it's done. And then when your dog beats our dogs, then we're maybe not so friendly.
Yeah, it's kind of like the one poor falconer in the group that goes home with the empty game bag at the end of the day after everybody else has filled theirs.
Human nature being what it is. Yes, we are a competitive species regardless of what we do.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes regardless of how humble we try to act. And
yes, that it didn't bother you in the least that my dumb dog didn't run the rabbit. And like they say in all dog venues, he does it at home.
Very true. Yeah, it's just funny because, you were telling me the story of, you and Kevin kind of, bantering back and forth some during a, competition. And, it like I said, it just cracks me up because, we all talk some degree of smack, even,
yes.
as good natured or whatever you want to call it.
Well, Kevin's a young whippersnapper and I'm old grandma, so
he can take it.
I had to knock him down a notch, and he took it very well.
Well, that's good. I mean, he needs to be knocked down
all young men do.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, we all occasionally need those ego checks.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
And especially in falconry, because as we have discussed many times before, and as we all know, if you don't check it yourself sometimes, then nature at times will check it for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you're dealing with a live animal, either the hawk and the dog, and they have their own personalities and their ways of doing things. And sometimes they are more correct than we are. Mm-hmm. So we need to deal with how they process the hunt with how we would like the hunt to go. Mm-hmm. We want to go to the right. The dog says the rabbit went to the left. The hawk goes to the left. Well, you can call them all back if you have to.
Yeah.
But they're going that direction for a reason.
Yeah.
Because they know where the quarry is. We just have the car keys, and the sooner we learn that and humble ourselves to these expert animals, the better the hunt would be, in my opinion, and experience.
Yeah, that's very true. And I mean, like I said, there's just, it seems like, as you mentioned, there's so many considerations to, kind of factor into our decision to, either pick the right bird, pick the right dog, do all these different things that ideally we really need to do as right as possible going into it, or else there's just going to be so many other things that we can do just to be our own worst enemy sometimes otherwise, Yes. Yeah. And like I said, I kind of pity the person in a way who decides to get into both of these realms at the same time. And I can see, I mean, it's overwhelming. As you said, it's overwhelming enough, getting into falconry initially, getting into some of this different, some of these different dog competitions and stuff initially. I mean, if someone would want to get into falconry and these different competitions for dogs and stuff and train a dog all at the same time, I mean,
over the years, I have found that people do have a problem keeping track of the hawk and keeping track of the dog. It seems like a lot of falconers, and I'm not going to say men falconers, don't multitask. And I don't know where the dog is, what they tell me. Well, the dog is out hunting. If you want to watch the bird, and the dog can find you. It can track a 3-pound rabbit. Believe me, it can find you. So it's a hound. You need to let him go, try to find his little 3-pound rabbit, and not be always calling him back and giving him directions and worrying where he is. With the telemetry that's available in so many forms, if you put that on your dog, you have no reason to worry where is he. So keep track of the bird. It can be very complex. It can be very simple. And it depends on your personality. If you're a control freak and you have to have that bird right here and that dog right there, well, you're going to have a day out, but I don't know how successful you're going to be. They have to do what their talent tells them to do. So it can be frustrating, but it can also be very subtle and very predatory and very effective.
Yeah, and there's, as we were talking about earlier, there's really nothing that kind of comes close to or compares to seeing a dog work so closely in tandem with with a bird,
With a bird of prey.
Yeah, with
Yes.
a bird of prey. It's just there's just something about, I mean, and I know a lot of people that are just not big fans of dogs, don't want to incorporate it at all. I mean, to each their own. It's fine, but I have recently kind of felt like I've just now started to discover a little bit what I feel like I've kind of been missing out on, So it's been nice to, be a little bit more involved in these different aspects of, of falconry and what you can kind of, add to the table, so to speak. It's been kind of nice seeing the progression of it all and getting involved with some of this stuff because, like I said, I'm such a noob when it comes into the dog aspect of things. It's like I said, it's been interesting.
And it will get better the more you fly and run the dogs together. You have to work them together. You have to work out the kinks, and eventually it'll all come together. And you will see more catches than if you were in the briar patch trying to bull your way through it. If you stand on the outside, let that little dog go in there, leave the bird up in the tree, and wait for it to happen. Now, I fly a Harris, so a tree hawk, but the guys with goshawks are doing fine with dachshunds also. Once everybody learns their place, it all comes together. There's a symmetry to it that you get to see predation in nature and be a part of it. And I never tire of it. I've been doing it a long time, and I never get tired of it. I can't wait for the new season.
Yeah, and as far as like your involvement with like some of the dog trials and the field trials aspect of things and being a judge for those types of things and kind of being involved in that avenue of, the dachshund world and thing. I mean, how long have you been doing the judging and stuff for these competitions?
Depending on the competitions, the dachshund field trials since about 1982, but we also had a club for go-to-ground work and go-to-ground trials. I became a judge for that in the early 70s. And then in the late 90s, early 2000s, I became a German Richter. We have a North American Teckle Club, Teckle being another name for dachshund. And for those of you who out there think you have something better because you have a Teckle and not a dachshund, you have a dachshund. It's like a groundhog and a woodchuck. They are exactly the same, but there is a push to call the real hunting dachshund a Teckle. I have the small dachshunds, and in German they are called a Kaninchen and a Zwerg, Teckle. All right, but the German Dachshund Club has a newsletter, and it's called Der Dachshund. So these are all dachshunds. They come in 3 sizes, 3 coats, and they all hunt if you get the right one. So the field trials are one way just to have a little fun off season. The North American Teckle Club tries to bring the European way of testing dachshunds for what they were supposed to do. There's a big deal about blood tracking, which they've brought to America. If you shoot a deer, a bear, wild pig, and it's bleeding, and you can train a dachshund to track that. So it's conservation. We also have water tests, obedience tests with that North American Teckle Club. And I judge the go-to-ground in the real world, natural work underground. And also American Working Terrier Association does the same thing. We have den trials that are artificial, and we have hunting where I can watch your dog work underground against formidable quarry. So there's a whole world to dachshunds. And if you just use it for rabbits, that's fine. If you use it for treeing squirrels, flushing pheasants, it's a happy dachshund. But if you want to expand your horizons, there's a great deal out there you can do with a little rascal.
It seems like it.
Yes.
And I'm just now kind of discovering just how in-depth that world is. It's like I said, it's definitely kind of overwhelming, whenever you start to kind of delve into these different worlds. But as you said, so was getting into falconry and everything else. We make our way. Where there's a will, there's a way, as
yes,
they say.
There's also a relative.
Yeah. There is. That is very true.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I said, it's like I can't really describe, kind of how I thought this would go today. You know, I mean, there's only so much that people can tell you, as we said before, that will kind of prepare you to see, you know, certain things or what to expect. But I would say it's about half and half what I expected, you know, today, as far as the type of, I don't know, the type of people and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I kind of expected as much, but the how to, or the I guess how things were done in the middle of the trials and stuff, I really wasn't expecting things to kind of go how they do, as far as it all being kind of like really natural. You know, I thought it was more, you know, kind of more planted, or, you know, pre-planned and stuff. So I don't know why I didn't expect that, but it was really neat to see how they managed to get like these different, you know, fields and stuff, and these different clubs to allow them to have these trials on. I know we were talking earlier, man, if we could only have like 10 or 15 minutes even, you know, just to run our dogs and hawk just for 15 minutes, it seems like, yeah, it'd be a lot of fun.
Right. No, the Beagle clubs do not appreciate birds of prey in any way, shape, or form. And they go, particularly this club, the Tri-County Club out here in Carrolltown, the people that run it do an exceptional job of keeping the rabbits, keeping the habitat perfect, and welcoming a breed besides a beagle. Beagles are traditional rabbit dogs, and some people use them for hawking, and they're very happy with them. And some people use other breeds, but we are allowed to bring dachshunds and run them at these field trials. So it's an avenue to get the dog off the couch and to see that he really is a little predator.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one beagle fellow told me, he said, "Your dogs hunt like predators." Well, yes, the beagles are running the scent, and I'm sure they're after the rabbit in their minds, but they stick so close to the scent. Our dogs tend to be hard chargers, and they do have predation on their minds.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a very easy thing to forget that they are indeed predators. Yeah.
Yes, that's why they have that ivory.
Yep, exactly. But, well, I mean, like I said, I know you've been doing all this for such a long time, but, I mean, was there a time whenever you were initially getting into falconry, like, how much of a gap was there between getting into falconry, getting into dogs, or were you always combining the two of them ever since you got your start into falconry?
My father was a coon hunter, fox hunter, beagler, and as a child I was raised with hounds and came to appreciate hounds. And I vaguely recall as an early teenager I saw someone carrying macaws on their arm, and I think I'm got my father's pragmatic attitude, what good is that? And that triggered a exploration of falconry, that, oh, carry something on your arm that can do something, and a falconry. So in 1963, I became interested in birds of prey. And I went to the library, and there's lots of bird books, but no real falconry books where my library was in North Jersey. So I explored around and asked people about falconry and got no response and not many books. Now, remember, it's before the internet, so your library was your source of books. And in 1966, for whatever reason, an immature red-tail landed in our backyard. We lived at the end of a dead end, and he fluttered down and was hanging around the backyard, and my father and my brother helped me catch it. Now, I know now that the bird was probably quite ill, but he was quite hungry, and I took him up, and I had read enough to know to put jesses on him, and my father fixed a part in the garage, the barn, for him, and he seemed very tame, and he was, and we got along fine till I tried to reduce his weight, and one morning he was dead. So it was my first introduction to, oh man, I have a hawk, and I've got it on my fist, and now I don't have a hawk. But my interest in falconry expanded from there. But I found no kindred spirits. I eventually did learn that there were falconers around, but it wasn't legal. And they certainly weren't going to talk to a teenage girl. All right. So it was very, very difficult to find any information on falconry. I got a copy of B.B. and Webster's book, finally, and that was an eye-opener. And life went on through high school and college. And I got a IS red tail during college, and I can recommend that you can go to college, but don't get an Irish red tail. She was a great learning experience. When we first got her, she had maggots coming out her ears, and that's an experience to pull those out. And she grew up beautifully, and she was my bird, and I did fly her, and she would not tolerate people in the field or eventually around where we lived, and my brother has the scars to prove it. So she went to somebody else, and I tried a great horned owl. His name was Venom, and it fit him. He was not a particularly bright or cooperative bird, so he went elsewhere also. When I graduated college, I worked in a zoo, and the curator was good enough, the director was good enough to let me dress up and fly on a creance, a short-tailed hawk, and a crane hawk, and a broadwing. So they all teach you something. Every bird teaches you something. So in the meantime, in the early 80s, I met Floyd Presley in Western Maryland, and he sort of became my father in falconry because it wasn't yet legal in New Jersey, and Floyd taught me a great deal about Harris's hawks. And what appealed to me mainly was that they would work with dogs and willingly work with dogs. Coming from a hound background, I liked that idea. So my husband and I started an organization called New Jersey Raptor Association, and we would hold meetings at the environmental center where we worked at the time. And a lot of people that came had interest in birds of prey in various avenues. There were rehabilitators, banders. Some of the guys hanging around the back were falconers with their mouths shut. And eventually we got to know them better. We became bird banders. We banded up on the Kittatinny Ridge and banded all kinds of birds of prey. And that taught us a great deal. And I got my rehabilitator's license, and we would take in mainly birds of prey. And we had a nurse out in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Tom Muchler. He would operate on the birds for us. So we would drive out there, and he taught us a great deal about bird care, how to set a wing, amazing things. He was a great rehabber. And we always accused him that since he was a nurse at a hospital, that these birds always had parts to eat, which he vigorously denied. So between all that, the falconry always seemed to blossom, and I wanted that more than anything else. And with Floyd Presley's help, I got my first Harris's hawk, and I really haven't looked back because they work so well with the dogs. Most of them, it's the same with any species. You know, they'll do what they do, and you have to either work it out or not. But I have had incredibly wonderful predatory experiences to watch the hawk and the dogs. I did start out with terriers, and they were good brush busters. They were a little hard on my kids, but sometimes the kids deserve to be bitten. But the terriers would bump a rabbit, and I was used to a dog that bumps a rabbit and follows the scent line, and the terriers would just keep running around barking. So one day I got a little smooth-haired dachshund from the feed dealer where I bought our feed for chickens and ducks, and the dog was on a chain. And I asked the feed store owner, "Why are you keeping that little dog on a chain?" And he said, "Well, she was owned by an elderly couple who bred her to a toy poodle every time she came in heat so they could sell tiny, cute puppies outside the supermarket. And one of the elderly owners died, and they sold the dog to the feed store owner. So he put a chain on her and tied her to a shed. And he said, but that darn dog, when I put the food pan down, she backs up on the chain until the chickens come to eat the feed, and then she charges out and kills the chickens. Well, I have to admit the little light went on in my brain and said, oh, that's a predatory little dog. So I bought my first dachshund for AKC registered for all of $150 and went home. Kept her with my terriers and my other dogs. First time out, we were out about an hour and she disappeared. So I walked back to the truck and she was sitting by the truck. And I thought, oh boy, I've got a winner here. So I messed with her for another week or so and I took her out again. And once again, about an hour later, she's gone. So we start back to the truck and one of my other dogs indicated a hole. And I listened and that little dog was down there barking at a groundhog. So her career went forward. She had very thin, smooth coat. So I bred her to a wire hair dachshund, which was an interesting experience because I had to call show people for a wire hair dachshund because John Q. Public doesn't know there are wire hair dachshunds. And I finally found a woman that would breed to my little dog. The other breeders would say, no, you're the one that puts them in holes. And I thought, no, you never put a dachshund in a hole. They go in or they don't. So I started with wire hairs and smooths, but I found that I could not consistently breed good wire hair coats. Some of them would come out linty and curly. And for hunting, they were worse than a smooth hair because the linty coat held the water in. And in order to get a good coat, you had to breed to a good coated dog, and you also have to strip the dead hair out of a wire hair dachshund twice a year. And the falconers didn't want to be bothered with that. So eventually at a field trial out in Ohio, I saw a wild and crazy long hair miniature. And I got a hold of her. I think that was the early 90s. And from then on, I stuck with the long hairs because they can take the cold weather. And yes, they get burrs in their coats, but so do spaniels. And as I wrote in the one book, that's why God made scissors.
Very true. Yeah, it really is not very fun. I usually, I know when I come home after hunting, I always tell my wife how much the dogs missed her. And I usually then hand them over and then run.
Yes.
And usually, yeah, she usually finds me and hands them right back and says, you take care of this, you did this, you know. But yeah, it's not fun getting all that stuff out of that coat.
There are sprays you can use, that horse spray that the burrs will slide out. You can take a plier and break the burr and then comb it out. But it's also kind of, it's like putting fuel in the lawnmower before you use it again. You know, it's taking care of your partner there. And the dogs, of course, as long as you don't pull too hard, they enjoy getting cleaned up, get the burrs out of themselves. Oh, but if that's the worst thing, what they give us without any hesitation is they just want to hunt. And I think my greatest reward is being able to share that joy when I sell a puppy and it becomes a real hunter for a falconer and they say, I wish I'd done this years ago. You know, that's my greatest pleasure, is to let other people see how well it works. And it doesn't work for everybody. Not everybody is a dog person. Not every dog is a number one. And there are times, and some birds don't tolerate a dog and some do. But when it does come together, it's magic, in my opinion. And I never get tired of it.
For sure. Yeah, and I agree. Like I said, having seen it work consistently, especially over this last season or two, with not just, you know, these dogs that I've, you know, tried to get going myself, but also my friends' dogs. And, you know, it really is interesting just how much it can enhance your falconry. And I mean, so what kind of was the main reason you decided to start breeding your own lines and decided to kind of have this, I don't know, self-appointed undertaking, I guess? I mean, was it more, for lack of better terms, was it more like selfish reasons? Like, did you want to just start developing your own hunting lines so that you would always kind of, have dogs to work with? Or was it more because you did want other people to kind of start taking up the mantle and seeing like the breed's value? What was kind of the motivation?
It's really a combination, because when I started taking on apprentices, and they would come out with me with the Harris Hawk, and they'd watch the Dachshunds. And most people are very skeptical of these little foo-foo dogs until they see them work. And then they would say, well, I'd like to get one of those. Well, I could send them to a pet breeder or a show breeder, but I couldn't say that Dachshund was going to be as good. Even though most Dachshunds will hunt, you can bring it out in them. And I felt, well, if I bred them and started them a little bit, then these people could more easily share this experience. And I guess just bottom line, I like to produce puppies and see how they turn out. It's a great thrill to me to watch these puppies come on and say, oh, that one's going to be great, and that one's a dumbhead. And, but again, I think I get so much out of supplying them to other people. And it's not to make money, because you don't make money doing that. If you want to make money, you get a golden retriever and make Labradoodle puppies, 10 at a time. Dachshund has maybe 2 to 4 puppies, and the time it takes to raise them and get their shots and worm them and train them a little bit, there really is not money in it. That's not my goal whatsoever. I charge money for my dogs because I want people to take care of them. All right, that they have something of value. And the greatest percentage of time it works out. It's also heartbreaking to me when a hunting dog is lost, a dachshund is lost. I don't blame people much if it's a hunting accident, because anytime you turn a bird or a dog loose in the woods, things can happen. What I resent is husbandry, poor husbandry, that you didn't have a tight enough fence or a tall enough fence, and the coyote jumped over and stole your dog, or the dog dug out because there was a squirrel down the road and he got run over. You need to contain these dogs properly. And I know things happen. If the kid leaves the gate to the swimming pool open and the dog drowns, well, sorry, and I'll sell you another one when you fix the gate or the kid.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of heartbreak in putting dogs with other people and hoping they take care of them and hunt them. I've put a number out and people never figured out how to hunt them. And they became pets for 15, 17 years. And that's the owner's option.
Yeah. Like I said, I openly admit that there've been times, with my Vizslas in particular and stuff, that I didn't feel like, that I was doing anywhere near as much justice as I could, as a dog owner and as a hunter and everything else. And I swore that if I was ever going to try another breed, that I would do my best to do it, what in my mind, correct that, and do my best with it. So, like I said, after reevaluating things and kind of, kind of having another retrospective, so to speak, I guess, of my own falconry and what I wanted to do, I'm glad that I decided on this breed, because like I said, as we were talking before, one of the most rewarding things that I've kind of experienced in my personal falconry so far is seeing the evolution of an insecure, dog that lacks confidence and just really won't leave you in the field, to seeing the progression of them coming completely out of their shell into their own, and then just seeing how they just turn on. And then you've got the opposite problem at the end of the season. Now they don't want to quit, seeing that evolution has been super rewarding. So Was it kind of a similar type thing for you? Like whenever you initially started dealing with this breed in particular, did you have similar experiences that made you, really just want to, like I said, just continue on with this breed in particular? I guess I should ask, was there a particular experience that you had with a particular dachshund that made you be like, okay, this is my breed from here on out? Like, this is the breed that I want to
Probably my
have.
first long hair.
Yeah.
She came from a mom and pop breeder out in Kansas, and she taught me a great deal about dachshunds and humbled me a great deal because she knew more about the game, the animal we were hunting, than I ever could. If I thought the rabbit went left and she went right, she was correct. All right. And she was one of those that was pretty much a self-hunter. And if I wanted to come, that was fine. And if I didn't keep up, well, that was my loss. But she was an incredible game finder. And, she treated squirrels, and my main quarry at the time is rabbits. So she would hunt up rabbits like nobody's business. She would open on the track, bark on the track, and circle the rabbit, and the hawk eventually would catch. And if there's one day that stands out, the hawk caught 6 rabbits and the dogs got 3. So it became a burden to get back to the truck, literally. However, that little red dachshund, Steffi, was not finished. And when I put the game in the truck and the bird was with me and the other dogs, and Steffi was not. And I thought, oh, and I could hear her barking way far away from my car where we had just come from, and barking loudly and aggressively. So I knew at that time she had something in a hole, and she was not going to leave it. So I carry a shovel, and I walked all the way back up there to Steffi, and she had a great big raccoon in a hole. And by gar, she wanted me to do something about that. So she was a dog that could make your adrenaline rush because she would get into game. Where we lived, she used to run the coyotes up over the mountain. And to prove that she was meant to be my dog, here's a story for you. We lived in the Ramapo Mountains in North Jersey. And it's all up and down, big rocks, logs. And one day I had several dogs out, including Steffi, and they took up off over the mountain. All right. And all the other dogs came back, and Steffi did not. And I'd only had her about a month, so I didn't know her that well. And she did not at the time have an ID collar, which was my fault. So all the dogs came back and Steffi didn't come back. So I waited, and then I went home. And of course, living in the mountains, you can't exactly drive around the block because it's mountains everywhere. So I called the police in the 2 towns because there was a town on either side of the mountain, and the local veterinarians, and I worried, and I went to the SPCA shelter down in town and told them who I had lost. She had a tattoo inside her thigh. She's a little red dachshund. And a week later, I never heard from her, never saw her, had no idea where she was. And I didn't want to tell the people where I got her that, the first dachshund I got, I had just lost from them. And about a week later, I got a call from the shelter that we have your dog. We have your dachshund. And I drove down there very quickly. Now, part of the explanation of this story is when you come down off our mountain, you have the Ramapo River, which is a real river, and the next road puts on Route 202, which is a highway, on into the town of Oakland. All right. So I went to the shelter, and there she was. She was a little rough looking, but pretty glad to see me. But, Steffi was happy with whatever was going on. And I asked how she got to the shelter. And they said there was a woman, a single mother, at a park with her daughter. And Steffi was in the park, kind of looking around, and they picked her up. She allowed herself to be picked up, which was unusual because she didn't ever like that. And they took her home, and they were going to keep her. And the mother, bless her heart, said, no, this must belong to somebody around here, around the park. So they put a leash on Steffi, and they walked her around their neighborhood. And as they were walking, Steffi suddenly made a right turn up a couple of steps to a house. So they assumed that's where she lived. So they banged on the door, and the woman came to the door, and they gave her the story. And the woman says, I work for the SPCA shelter. Now, you have to say it was meant to happen, that Steffi was meant to be mine. I have no explanation for that. There were houses all along that road. And why Steffi went up that woman's front step, I don't know. But things like that happen, and I don't need an explanation. I know Steffi was my first long hair and became the mother, the foundation of this long hair line. And it gives me a thrill to see in the puppies the ancestors now of all these generations, and to be able to put these puppies out and have other people breed them and succeed in breeding them and putting them, to share the joy, to share that joy.
Yeah, I can imagine how rewarding that would be. I mean, just knowing that a huge percentage of the dachshunds that are being used in falconry right now, in particular, came from a lot of your lines. And I mean, facts are facts. I mean, a lot of people credit you for that. I mean, they credit you for being a huge reason why they're mainly used in falconry. And, it seems like that would just be, like I said, not to use it as like an ego stroker or anything by any stretch of the imagination. But I mean, I'm sure that's probably very rewarding to know. It is.
It's incredibly rewarding when it works.
Yeah. And I mean, that had to be a ton of work.
Yes. If you've ever raised a litter of puppies, you know what the work is involved. If you do it right, and then finding the correct homes. And people are not only grateful to have the dogs, but there are people that will call and they may not be as honest as you would like them to be about what they're really going to do with the dog. One fellow told me he was getting into falconry. It was the most fascinating thing, but he wanted to get the dog first. And turns out he just wanted the dog. And he gave me a song and dance, and I believed him that he was going to be a falconer, and he never did, but they had a nice pet dog for 10, 12 years. I can sell a man a dog, I can't make him hunt it. All right, and there are heartbreaks too, but there are a lot more success stories, and it is rewarding. I won't say ego, because it is a dachshund, and you can take many dachshunds. And I sold a well-bred dachshund to a guy in Louisiana. He decided he wanted to breed it, but again, he didn't want to go travel to take the dog to be bred or put any money into it. So he went down the road and he bought a pet dachshund from some what they call backyard breeders, and it was a better dog than mine. And fine, good for him. Great, I'm happy for him. It's a dachshund. They aren't all world beaters. I line breed. I try to breed for certain characteristics, but I've seen dachshunds at field trials that can whip my butts on my dogs, and they've never done anything except sit on the couch. First thing, they're a dachshund, but I feel by line breeding and putting that desire for hunting and enhancing it, and also breeding for a body type that is not a show type. I like a taller dog with very narrow chest, narrow shoulders, and a very shallow chest, because they need to be athletic to get over logs and rocks and under things, kind of like a mini fox, okay? And they need the brain and the nose to keep going, that determination and bravery. And the show dachshunds tend to be short-legged, big-chested, and that's their sport. and my sport is based more on the European original shape of the dachshund. The Germans developed the miniature dachshunds to go in holes and chase rabbits out. I call them German-engineered rabbit hunting machines, because when they learn that they can hunt rabbits or any small game, they're one fellow, what did he call it? Murder hounds. If they were any bigger, we'd all be in trouble. But they are personalities, and yes, it is very rewarding. And I am actually surprised and humbled by how well they've done, and I'm happy for the people. And I'm always here to answer questions, if there's a problem or a training, and that's why I've written some articles here and there, how to start a puppy, and basically it's exposure to game, just like a young hawk. Socialize the dog, expose it to game, make it behave a little bit. Since the invention of e-collars, there's been a lot better behaved dogs, and I'm all for that. I believe in corporal punishment when it's necessary. You can ask my children. So, thank you. Yes, it sort of took me by surprise, but the more people that got them, the more people that wanted them. And now there are other people breeding them and breeding good lines. And
well, that's what you kind of probably wanted to happen, though, right?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
Because, we're all not going to live forever.
Right. I'm not going to be around all that. I'm in good health now. I'm 75, and I'm not quitting breeding and hawking. But the next generation has got to, I hope, keep these lines going to share that joy with their next generation. Matter of fact, my first apprentices, Phil and Paul Aaliyah, up in Jersey, first thing I told them was, I'm going to sell you a dachshund. And they haven't looked back, bless their hearts. They were.
Yeah, it's the kind of built-in prerequisite. It's like, well, I'll sponsor you, but
right. But they're wonderful young men, and they've done great with the dachshunds and with the hawks they fly. And I give them a lot of credit for not only working, but having children and wives and still flying birds. That's heartwarming, too, and still having the dachshunds. And there's many other success stories. I had a man call last week. I sold him a dog in 1997, and I sold him one in 99. And he's still a falconer, but now he flies a peregrine at Winged Quarry. He doesn't need a dachshund, but his apprentice needs a dachshund because he's got a red tail. And, it's all those years later that they come back. I've had people call. He said, I bought a dog from you 10 years ago and I want another one. I said, well, how was it? Was it a good? Oh, best dog I ever had. You got any? And now with the internet and the cell phones, I can keep closer track. I don't bug people about their dogs. If you want to tell me about it, fine. If you have a problem or things are good. But I'm not going to call you up every week and say, have you done any drags? Have you get it out? No, I don't nag you. It's your dog. Do what you want with it. I put the genetics in it. You have to do the rest.
Yeah, there has to be a, I don't know, for lack of better terms, a disconnect to some degree. It's like you want to know that your pups are doing well with other people, but there has to be, some distance after
Yes,
they leave.
They need to stand on their own feet.
You can't, it's like you said, you can't control what other people do. Mm-hmm. And you're just going to drive yourself nuts if you sit there and try and monitor. Could you imagine how crazy you'd probably be if you tried to monitor how every single pup that you ever produced?
Right. I wonder about some of the pups sometimes, and but I let it go. I have lost dogs in hunting, and I'm at the point where if something happens to that dog, my first thought is, what am I going to get to replace it? I cry, I bury them. I'm a basket case. But then I think about a puppy and move on. And I also tell people, and I don't get a lot of good reaction from this, is don't marry your dog. If that dog is not hunting like you need it to hunt, whether it's your fault or the genetics fault, don't keep it. Don't make it a pet for the next 18 years. Why put money into a dog that isn't doing what you need it to do. Yes, they're cute and they'll sit on your lap and lick your face, but you can give it to Aunt Matilda and it'll do the same thing for her. In my dealing with people, I tell them, if the dog doesn't work out for you, I will take the dog back and I will either give you another puppy or I will take the dog back and refund your purchase price. I really don't want the dogs either ignored, tied out to a shed, or put in a rescue situation. They're my dogs forever. All right. I took back a 3-year-old female because the guy's job took him yonder. He had already traveled extensively for his job and hunted the dog across the United States. The business overwhelmed him. His father was going to keep the dog in the kennel. I said, I'll take her back. Well, she was one of the driven ones that if I wanted to go hunting with her, that was fine, but otherwise have a nice day. And she gave me some scary moments where she is or what she's doing, but we survived it together. She was a great little dog. One day in the snow, that we were hunting, we caught a rabbit. The sun came out, the snow was deep and melting. So instead of coming with me back through the woods, she apparently came out to a small road and was going to walk the road back. Smart, you know. Well, there were people in a BMW who, quote unquote, rescued her because there's this little dog and she was full of snow and her tail had got caught in briars. So when she wagged her tail, it covered the snow and her sides were covered with blood because the tail was bleeding. So they opened the trunk of their Mercedes and they took out a beautiful plaid Scottish wool blanket and wrapped her in it. And they heard me calling and they came around and the woman was huddling this miscreant dachshund who looked very smug and wagging her tail at me. I said, "Oh, is this your little dog? Do you want us to take you to the veterinarian? I think she's bloody. She's been hit." And I knew what was going on, and that dog knew what was going on. So Risa gave me a few reasons to explain to people, no, she's my dog and she's fine, and thank you. Are you sure? And I appreciate people caring enough. One time when I dropped the dogs behind an industrial park, like a lot of us do, I had a couple of women run out and say, "You can't dump dogs here. That's not fair. That's cruel." So once again, we had a little discussion about what I was doing. Another place, there was a bunch of construction workers, and the rabbit ran past them, and they didn't see it. But the dachshund came barking after the rabbit, and the hawk was right over the dachshund because they're all going after the rabbit. And these lovely young construction men said, "We'll save your dog, lady. We'll save your dog, lady." And they went running after the dachshund to try to stop her. And I had to explain to them, thank you. The stories are endless. After all these years, the stories are endless. And I'm sure anybody that's had a dachshund and a hawk have their stories. And it's wonderful.
Well, and definitely appreciate you sharing just a handful of them with us today. I mean, I know we could go on for forever and ever, but I know I've got to get you back soon so that you can do some more judging and whatnot.
Yes.
But before we do end this, though, I want to ask you 2 last questions. And the first would be, I know that you've put so much time, effort, and energy into your lines, you know, your falconry and everything else. Is there anything, especially with the, you know, the breeding of the dogs or anything that if you had hindsight, of course, and were able to change anything or anything that you discovered a long time that, thought maybe, well, if I would have just maybe done that sooner, or, I would have had better success doing this or anything, would there be anything that you would change sooner or anything with anything that you've done previously?
Perhaps. What I have learned with breeding the dogs is to set a goal. I want a dog with leg and narrow chest and plenty of drive. And any dog that falls outside that goal, don't keep it to breed it. Sell it to a hunter, and that's great, because the body shape is hard to get and maintain. So I wish sooner that I had seen that the taller, narrower dogs were going to be more successful. I was just so thrilled that the Dachshunds would hunt as well as they did, and I used everything. But over the years, I see that the lighter framed, more athletic ones are going to be more successful in the field. And that's almost splitting hairs. I mean, I'm at a point where I know my puppies will hunt. Now I weed them down to the body shape that I'm aiming for. Because one of the probably second best dogs I ever had, her sire was a show dog that I liked the feel of. He had leg, he was narrow. He'd never seen a rabbit in his life. And I bred him, the show breeder let me breed to him. And I bred her to that crazy Steffi dog. And the bitch I got out of it, Gavia, she was my ideal. And I tried to stick with that. It doesn't always work. But like a hawk, you have a goal in mind that it want to handle this way, hunt this quarry, the quarry you have. And if the bird doesn't work out, either let it go or trade it off. But don't keep something that isn't what you desire. And I'm very glad I found that little dachshund tied to a shed, because that certainly changed my falconry and my life. And I have to say, God bless my husband for putting up with me and my children. My husband is my wind, the wind beneath my wings.
Well, like I said, I think that's very well said. And yeah, like I said, if we didn't have people in our lives that didn't put up with with our shenanigans,
yes,
Lord knows where we would be,
yes,
for sure. And then the one last thing that I want to ask you, of course, is if you'd be willing to share, any particular piece of advice, sentiment, or whatever for any current or future, falconers that either are, thinking about getting into the sport, currently in the sport, whatever the situation may be. If there's a particular thing that you think that they, should really take into consideration, or, whatever that, and it's anything.
When you get involved in taking care of a live animal you want to use for something, you really should give it the best care that you can. A hawk can survive in many situations, captive situations, and so can a dog. You can chain it out to the garage, or you can let it sleep in bed with you, either one. But you need to do right by it as far as getting it out and hunting it. Not just say, look, I have this and I have that, and I get out, once a week. You aren't really doing right by the animal to bring out what it's capable of. And don't get into the sport if you don't have the time to do it right. And really family support if you can. We all know that, and you may not talk to my husband or children. But they are living creatures, and they deserve care, and you'll get more out of them with proper care.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I don't think we could probably end on a better note than that. Like I said, thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me today and take time out of what is, I'm sure going to end up being a somewhat chaotic weekend. I mean, I know my week has already been chaotic enough as it is, and I always appreciate anybody's time that's willing to join us on this.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I'm flattered that you would ask me, and I'm glad we had the time to do this, and I'm happy you got good dachshunds.
Yeah. Well, I am too, and like I said, I'm very happy to hear that, like I said, being so new in all this. I mean, we're lucky whenever we end up with people who are good mentors and people that can steer you in the right direction and stuff. And, I'm happy to have gotten a chance to meet someone such as yourself who has been dealing with all this way longer than I have, obviously.
Before you've been born, buddy.
So, like I said, I thank you again so much for all your help today. And like I said, I guess we'll head back and see some more dogs run.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Teddy.